Welcome to Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram sports columnist Mac Engel, big Appalachian State fan, by the way, this week. And I'm joined by my good friend, who I'm going to be giving the business to here momentarily, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. We will be discussing the Cowboys debacle on Sunday night in Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in a second. But first things first. Clarence, normally you're all over me about being on this thing on time, and I've never been late, ever, once. You're always like, Mac, where are you? Where are you? I hate being early. I hate it. So I try to be like on time. You, however, decided to be late for something that is sponsored by the great people of Window Nation. I love Window Nation. I don't want to disappoint them. So you better have a good one, brother. Why are you late?
Why are we doing this? I've never called you out on air, live on air.
I've never been late.
Why are we doing this today? Why are we doing this? What's going on?
Fine, because it's consistent with the performance of the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of disappointment in Week 1, and the fact that you're late for Cowboys Overtime really disappoints me and the good people of Window Nation. Okay, we got to get right off the top. We're not going to bury the lead here. Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott suffered a broken bone in his throwing hand near the end of that train wreck disaster against the Bucs on Sunday night. He had surgery for it. Clarence, obviously, this changes everything about the season when you lose your starting quarterback. Where are we on this now? Because at first we heard several weeks, according to Jerry Jones. Then it went up to 6 to 8 weeks. And now we're back down to what again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is Jerry Hope or Cowboys Hope or a great doctoring by the Cowboys. Certainly not Dr. Jerry. But it went from 6 to 8 Sunday night to 4 to 6, and Jerry now thinks that Dak may just miss 3 games. The timeline is 4 to 6, but the Cowboys are not putting Dak Prescott on injured reserve, which required him to miss 4 games. They hope that he can be back fewer than 4 games. So, you know, it's because of the surgery. They think they saw something that they liked about what happened in the surgery. They got good news in the surgery, and they really believe that Dak Prescott, because of the fracture of the thumb, that he can get back possibly with missing just 3 games.
Do you buy that? I don't buy that. I mean,
I think that it's optimistic. Certainly, it may be a little aggressive. But the good news is, regardless if it's 3 or 4 games or 5 games, it's not 6 or 8. I really believe that it's not just Jerry. That I don't think that the Cowboys doctors and people, the medical people within the staff will certainly put Dak in a situation where he could injure himself further. Certainly wouldn't put him out there if he was injured. They really believe, somebody believes that, you know, the timeline is much sooner than we initially thought, from 6 to 8. So that's good news. You know, him missing up to 2 months, the season is definitely over. Him missing just a month, they still have a chance with this schedule.
So, Clarence, as I understand it, I want to make sure you clear this up for me. It pretty much is going to come down to whether or not he can close his hand and get his grip strength, normal grip strength and grip motion back to what it was before he injured it. Is that correct? So that's pretty much going to come down to just how he feels.
Right. And how he can grip, his strength and how he can grip the football, for sure.
Clear this up for me. Correct? So that's pretty much going to come down to just how he feels.
Yes, it's correct. And how he can grip, his strength and how he can grip the football, for sure.
There seems to be a little bit of a technical problem there.
I'm here. I was trying to share the video on Facebook, and it was going live a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I was hearing you twice.
I don't think anybody wants to hear me twice. You know, let's be honest. Even before he suffered that injury, the Cowboys' offense was just – I don't even have words for how bad they were. Jerry Jones said that was the worst Week 1 loss that he could remember since owning the team in Week 1, the very first game that they ever, very first regular season game that he owned the team back in 1989 or 88 when they lost to the Saints and Jimmy Johnson called it a high school team. In my mind, the worst Week 1 loss that I can ever remember following this team was the Dave Campo era loss at Texas Stadium when it was 110 degrees, and the Philadelphia Eagles ran out the Dallas Cowboys. But that was a pickle juice game. Sunday night was pretty bad. I mean, it's in the discussion as the worst one. That offense was putrid. The right tackle was terrible. The quarterback couldn't hit anybody. The number one wide receiver looked like a number 5 receiver. The other receivers looked like they didn't belong in the NFL. The only thing that went right a little bit was the play of left tackle Tyler Smith, the rookie. They moved him over to the left side, and he played pretty well. And Zeke Elliott, in very limited action, ran the ball okay. He didn't run it very much. Clarence, we could talk about this forever. What the hell is wrong with this offense?
Well, if you watched them in training camp, they didn't score a lot of touchdowns in training camp. Their receiving core, the offensive line was getting murdered in training camp by the Cowboys defense. Well, that's because the Cowboys defense is pretty good. Well, no, it's because those issues are still issues and major issues for this team. And there was I always had some concern about the receiving core and their ability to score touchdowns and move the ball. And certainly you saw that. It certainly bore out Sunday night. Mike McCarthy talked about, we just didn't convert third downs. No, you didn't do anything well.
Yeah, it wasn't just isolated to third downs. They were what, 2 of 15 or 3 of 15 on third downs?
Yeah, it was awful. Certainly they were awful on third downs, but it was more than that. I mean, you just look at the offense and, the fact that Kellen Moore tried to double reverse on the third play of the game, when you got to trick them early, that tells me you're not confident what you're doing.
Well, the other thing I hated about that play was how deep in their own end that they ran it. And I understand, like, he had one of those trick plays pulled up his sleeve against the San Francisco 49ers in that playoff game that blew up. And, yeah, I know, it's just one trip away. And, boy, they were going to pop that one for a big, big game. But, man, why would you run a play that early in the game, that deep in your own end? Especially when you just hit the nail on the head. There was nothing this receiving core did in the offseason and in training camp and preseason that said they can handle this. This was so much worse than – and you and I were we were overly optimistic, I think, and I know it's just 1 week. But, Clarence, that disaster was way worse than I think even your worst fears, correct?
And, I mean, no one saw that coming. I mean, I didn't have the Cowboys winning. I certainly had a low-scoring game. I thought that, like I said, it was – defense were going to be ahead of the offense early on. But for them not to get in the end zone, not to move the ball out at all, the Cowboys are the only team in the league, the Dallas Cowboys, the team that led the NFL in points and yards of offense last season. Number 1 in the league with offense last season. Was the only team in the league that did not score a touchdown, did not get in the end zone, not get pay dirt in week 1. Everybody else did. Jacksonville,
they didn't even come close.
Detroit. I mean, everybody, Seattle even won. Everybody except the Cowboys, except your Dallas Cowboys.
Because of the timeline now, I need to backpedal a little bit to the Dak situation. Obviously, this means Cooper Rush, a veteran backup who's started one NFL game. He won it last season in Minnesota. Clarence, given the timeline that they think that they can maybe squeeze this injury to Dak in under 3 to 4 weeks, do you think there was ever any thought that they would look to trade for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo for San Francisco? Is that just a media fun narrative? Yeah, no,
I never thought they would be trying to trade for anybody, for sure. No, that just was not. Certainly, if you look at the situation, it would have to have been somebody off the streets. And again, if it's 8 weeks, I guess you think that you could get somebody up to speed. But what you're talking about now 4 weeks, and I think that was part of it. The decision making last night when they switched from to let's go in with our guys. And, I don't even know who's out there on the street. A lot of people are talking about Cam Newton. You're talking about a trade. I think the best situation was if you bring somebody in there off the street that you don't have to trade for, maybe a guy like Cam Newton or somebody like that. But I just don't think they were going to give up draft capital to do that. And if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, who has a no trade clause, those people don't understand. You just trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo has a no trade clause, and why would he come to Dallas for 2 months with this receiving core and this offensive line?
Because it's a chance to play. He wants to play. All those guys want to play.
But he needs to play to put himself out there for agency next year. he's not going to be able to put good film out there, learn the offense in less than a month with this receiving core and with this offensive line. That doesn't behoove him in his best situation as far as free agency is concerned.
Then let's go back to the offense, and you're talking about putting together good film for even a quarterback who's done pretty well in the NFL, and Jimmy Garoppolo. You don't even think he could do very well with this offense. Clarence, it will get better because these guys are playing for real now, and the preseason's over, and usually the first game is kind of a mess, and it looks more like that looks more like the preseason games used to look before guys and teams just shut everybody down. So I think it'll get a little bit better. But what did you see on Sunday night, just from the offense? What did you see on Sunday night that you thought that gave you reason to think, yeah, okay, it's not going to look like this. They're not going to go week in and week out of scoring 3 or 7, 10 points. They can be better than this.
I didn't see anything even before Dak was out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is Tampa's defense that good? I know they had a pretty good defense last year, but they were not a top 5 defense last year. And I know they're a fast defense, but they were just out of sync. CeeDee Lamb is the number 1 receiver, and the guys he's working with, I mean, it just wasn't there. Can they lean on the running game? Can they lean on Zeke in the running game? To go down the field and be consistent and finish drives. They have to show that. But your only hope is that Dak was off. You got Dak has to be better than that. Dak is a $40 million quarterback that Dak can make plays and Dak can get something done. That's what the Cowboys were hoping for. We just didn't see that in week 1.
No, and you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I think the other guy who deserves to be dropped in the grease a little bit too is Tony Pollard. They tried to put him in position so they could get him out on the field, and they can't because he just can't pass block. And you say what you want about Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott is as good as any running back who's ever blocked. He's outstanding. Tony Pollard can't do anything. I mean, there were in multiple instances when he was on the field, Clarence, where his man drove him back and altered the play. I don't know what they're going to do other than what they have done with Tony Pollard, which is to use him in really limited instances because they can't trust him in pass protection. And, as far as the other guys, the receivers, I mean, they didn't even activate rookie 3rd-round pick Jalen Tolbert. He wasn't even active. And I don't know who Dak is supposed to throw to other than CeeDee Lamb, and none of those guys could get separation. I mean, it was awful. It was so much worse. 2 or 3 years ago, 2018, when they decided to go with the, by committee approach with wide receivers, Allen Hurns did more than CeeDee Lamb on Sunday night when Allen Hurns was the number 1 guy. And then they decided, well, that's not working. And they got to go trade for Amari Cooper. Well, they don't like Amari Cooper. He's in Cleveland because they traded him for a bag of dog food. And now this is what you got. And that's the part that's the most troubling is that I didn't see any of those guys get any separation whatsoever. All right, we've got a couple more things. Go ahead.
Again, Mike Irvin brought it up. I mean, he talked about it. I talked to him last night. I talked to Mike Irvin last night, and he just basically said they should have never traded Amari Cooper. He thinks they need to go get help at receiver. Still, they need to go get help at receiver.
Well, they ain't going to do that anytime soon because the Dallas Cowboys, like our team. Okay, we're going to come back here on Dallas Cowboys Overtime right after a word from our good friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no payments and pay no interest until 2025. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Thank you very much, good people at Window Nation. We appreciate that good word. Speaking of words, I wrote a lot of them in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram about the Mike McCarthy situation, which is now considerably more complicated because once again, the Cowboys head coach will be without the services of his starting quarterback. And I don't care what head coach you are, it's really hard to be evaluated fairly and accurately when you don't have your starting quarterback. In Mike McCarthy's first season with the Cowboys 3 seasons ago now, he lost Dak Prescott to a season-ending ankle injury in Week 5. And after that, he was just playing a bunch of backups, and the Cowboys sputtered predictably to a bad losing season. Last season, Dak Prescott comes back. He plays every game but one, which the Cowboys did win, by the way. Now, in his third season, Mike McCarthy will once again be without Dak Prescott for an extended period of time. Maybe 3 games, maybe 4, maybe 8. There is no way to properly evaluate a head coach if he doesn't have his starting quarterback. Now, one time before that happened, when you and I were covering the Cowboys, was Wade Phillips, when he didn't have his starting quarterback in 2010. And in about midway through the year, on a Sunday night game in Green Bay with John Kitna playing, rather than Tony Romo, who was out with a broken clavicle, the Dallas Cowboys lost with John Kitna on the road to Mike McCarthy's Green Bay Packers on Sunday night, 45-7. The next day, Jerry Jones fired Wade Phillips. Given the fact that Mike McCarthy, Clarence, is now going to be without Dak Prescott again for a long period of time, do you think this buys Mike guaranteed one more year?
I definitely can't say guarantees him anything, because, if you listen to the Cowboys after the game, certainly today, they were shocked at how the team played. They were shocked at the offense. They were surprised with the play of the offense and the performance they put on the field. Jerry Jones, as you said that was the worst performance and the season opening performance he's had in his career. Certainly the worst season opening performance I've seen since I've been with the Cowboys, especially when you consider the expectations. It's one thing, you go back to that pickle juice game, they lost 41-14 to the Eagles, but I don't know if that Cowboys team, certainly they lost Troy early in that game, and I think that I guess maybe that's the best comparison because they lost Troy and then Joey Galloway towards ACL and everything else, and with expectations on that team, and certainly the expectation with this team, a team that went to the playoffs last year with a charge. Michael McCarthy's charge is not just get back to the playoffs, but take them further in the playoffs. To go out there and play like that and put up a dud of a performance, that's on his ledger. He's going to be judged with that. And Stephen Jones said yesterday that the Cowboys, you can question everything, the decision making, how they prepared the team, not playing the starters in preseason and everything else. All that's on Mike McCarthy's ledger.
Well, the thing that really bothers me, and last season they prepared not that much differently than they did this most recent training camp. They really didn't play any of the starters of note, and they walked into the regular season. They played a great game at Tampa on Thursday Night Football. Dak Prescott threw for over 400 yards. They had a lead with about a minute to go before Tom Brady walked down and set up a game-winning field goal. Then the Cowboys went on a run that really propelled them to an NFC East title, and really a great, fun season. They pretty much did everything in terms of preparation the same way here in 2022. No one of note played in the preseason. No one really did anything in the offseason other than just not get hurt. And then they walk out the door and they just laid the mother of all eggs. The problem I have, it's personnel. They didn't give him any receivers, right? You mentioned Michael Irvin talking about Amari Cooper. They took him off the board. Now you've gone with the right tackle, who is probably a nice swing tackle, right? You lost a starter off the offensive line. Connor McGovern is hurt during the game. You've got a rookie at left tackle who acquitted himself quite nicely. We should say that time and again. Tyler Smith, especially what was expected and feared out of him, played pretty well on Sunday night against Tampa. He really did. But Clarence, to me, it just comes down to personnel and execution. Dak Prescott was terrible. I'm sorry. It was the worst game I've ever seen him play. He's better than that. Now, he may not be Tom Brady. He may not be Joe Burrow or any of those guys, but he's better than that awful performance. But the other thing, too, is I come back to is what did you give him personnel-wise? Did you make upgrades personnel-wise on offense? And you really didn't, and it showed, and that's on management.
Yeah, they set McCarthy and Prescott up the field because, and you can say what you want about Prescott. He had a bad game, but he certainly didn't have any help with the game plan with the offensive line, with the receiving core, and as a $40 million quarterback, it's easy to point the fingers at him and say, look, you're expected more. And he didn't play well, but he also had receivers that couldn't, get off bump and run coverage. He had receivers that drop, passes, and he had, dumb play call, and so that was all part of the mix there for the Cowboys and Prescott. So, as far as Mike McCarthy is concerned, there was already the specter of Sean Payton and Dan Quinn hanging over his head. And if they get off to a horrible start, and they have a horrible finish, I don't know that, that the Jones family will use the Dak Prescott injury to not move in a direction that everybody had them moving into anyway.
Yeah, I think it's going to entirely depend on how they play, maybe not the results. If they lose close games and they're playing hard and they're in it, because that was the one thing the Cowboys always did under Jason Garrett. They always played hard. Every now and then there'd be some ducks in there that were kind of ugly, but for the most part, they always played hard, and you couldn't really fight that part of it, which is one of the reasons why he kept his job for so long, even if the results weren't always there. Well, now Mike McCarthy's job is going to be dictated on how they play, and if they play pretty hard, that's going to help them out a lot. But if these results are as ugly as we think they could be, then Jerry, Steven, Charlotte, and everybody else, Rowdy, they're going to have a decision to make. Last thing we're going to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, sponsored by Window Nation. What's the Cowboys' record? What's the Cowboys' record going to be without Dak? You and I went on record, I guess, before the start of the regular season last week here on Cowboys Overtime and had predictions. You said 9 wins. I said 10. That was with Dak intact. Well, that's not happening now, so the record prediction changes. They've got Cincinnati. In the words of Bill Belichick, we're on to Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming up on Sunday at AT&T Stadium. The Bengals look pretty rough in a Week 1 home loss to Pittsburgh where they turned the ball over 5 times and should have won anyways. Then they've got the road game against the Giants, Washington here, the Rams in Los Angeles, at Philadelphia, whose offense looked very good in a win against Detroit last week. Then they come home against the Lions, the great Dan Campbell, Glenn Rose's own. They've got the Bears, and then they're at Green Bay. We don't know how many games he's going to be gone. So I'm going to have some fun with this. The next 3 games, we know he's going to be out. Cincy, Giants, Washington Commanders. Sorry, that's the worst, stupidest nickname ever. In those 3 games, what do you think the Cowboys will be?
I certainly think they'll lose to Cincy. And it's really the goal is to split the 2 division games against Washington and the Commanders. And, Washington and the Giants. So I'll have them losing to the Giants and beating Washington.
And you got them losing to Cincinnati, correct?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so now let's add the Rams to this. I'm writing this down because I'm going to do the math here in a minute, although math isn't normally my thing. What about the Rams?
Oh, I have them losing to the Rams as well. So that would be 1-3.
1-3. Now we've got Philly at Philly. Win or loss. Right? Without Dak, right. At Philly.
Heading to Philly. That's the goal. That's the hope. I think that the best case scenario for the Cowboys is he misses the 4 games, no matter what Jerry says, and comes back for the Philly game. At Philadelphia.
So let's just do this.
They need him back for the showdown against Philadelphia. They
totally do. It's in Philadelphia, which compounds matters significantly. So right now, without Dak Prescott, you've got the Cowboys with 1-3, and I think 4 games is pretty realistic. I think they're going to rush this as much as they can. So now it's going to be 1-3, which means their overall record after 5 games would be 1-4. I got to tell you, I think you're right. I think they might be able to beat the Giants just because I'm not really sure I trust that Giants team. I know that the Giants pulled out a big win against Tennessee on Sunday. It's really hard to believe Week 1 results as being anything indicative for the rest of the year. But I got to tell you, I think you're right. I want to hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong just because it makes things more interesting. But given what we saw, the fact that Cooper Rush is now going to be thrown to a bunch of backup receivers who are playing like backups when they need to play better, I just don't see them winning more than 1 game without Dak Prescott. And even then, you could really convince me quite easily that they're going to go 0-4. So this has been a lot of fun. Clarence, I do appreciate it. One last thing real quick. Oh, I need to ask you about a college game. What did you enjoy more? Texas, which you went to the game, Texas coming 1 point away of upsetting number one Alabama in Austin, or Texas A&M losing at home to Appalachian State?
I care about Texas more than I do hating on A&M. I don't know that I enjoyed a loss. I was encouraged by a loss because I thought it would get their heads kicked in. I certainly enjoyed the atmosphere. It was Texas Black homecoming in Austin. I got to see a lot of my friends and that I went to school with, and so I enjoyed being in Austin. Enjoyed the whole environment, whole experience of being in Austin. So I have to say Austin. But when you lose the game, the good cherry on top is Aggies losing as well.
They didn't just lose. They paid a team $1.5 million to come to their house and kick them around. All right, this has gone on too long.
Understand this. Texas is playing UTSA $2 million this week.
Ooh, it's a big check. Well, good for you. Well, they can afford it. All right, this
I
is
understand that, but they could, if the quarterbacks are out, we could be paying $2 million to lose as well.
Ooh, all right, that'd be fun. I won't run away from that. Okay, Clarence, appreciate you doing this. Thanks to the great people at Window Nation. The Dallas Cowboys host the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals at 3:15 on Sunday. Follow that game and all of your Cowboys coverage needs. Please check us out on StarTelegram.com. He's Clarence Hill. I'm Mac Engel. We'll see you next week.